Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm going to start here. First of all, as I've said before, and as you're aware, anytime that President Trump makes announcements again in the Oval Office, or signs executive orders, or again has individuals in his cabinet around him when he's making such announcements, it's very interesting, again, the word usage that he uses, the numerology, so to speak, that he'll bring up, and a number of other things. And again, as I've said before, you can get on the cue boards and pop in some of this information. You can even get on YouTube, or depending on, any particular search engine or even AI system, and type in some of what he says and then just kind of piece together what pops up. There was a particular post that Joe M. made on X the other day, having to do with Donald Trump mentioning the 80-20 strategy, or just bringing up the numbers 80-20. And this has multiple meanings. At least a lot of people seem to think that it does. First of all, there's the political meaning when it comes to receiving 80% support for so-called conservative ideals, basically, and having the vast majority of America agree with a particular policy, being again roughly 80%. And then how essentially Democrats end up always taking the 20% outlook on things, which is, of course, the vast minority point of view, again, regardless of the issue. Take, for example, again, National Guard in Washington, D.C. and cleaning it up. At least 80% of Americans are for that, whereas 20% are not. Now, the 20% who are not have no idea what's going on, so they're remarkably foolish. But again, the 80-20 also, again, if a person is digging in a little deeper and they're thinking about the meaning of those numbers and what they could possibly mean, there's also the approach that you need 80% of America to be on board with the agenda right now, in order to continue to move forward here towards sort of the latter stages of this game. And that it's fine if 20% aren't digging it. Again, if they get in the way, then they get in the way. And then they'll get arrested for getting in the way, and that'll be the way that ends up for them. But if you look up again 80-20 on YouTube, for example, you'll end up with a number of YouTube videos, again, describing, certainly from this year, describing Donald Trump's 80-20 strategy. That again, he looks for 80% approval on particular issues, and then he knows almost by default that Democrats and communists are going to take the basically lesser 20% point of view, and that they only make up 20% of that basic opinion, essentially. So they're always on the losing end, regardless again of the issue. But if you get the majority of the people behind you for, again, very logical moves that are being made, and these are logical moves, then that's a good thing. But this was also, again, why, certainly when it came to voter fraud in 2020, we knew that it was going to happen beforehand, before the election. We knew that the media was just going to take it. But the American public, again, had to see that. And we probably had 80% approval during that time. Again, 80% at least of the population probably voted for Donald Trump, certainly over Joe Biden. But again, everybody had to see that. Everybody had to see the ridiculous nature of what the bad guys, so to speak, were attempting. And then, again, we had to see the reaction behind all of that, all of the lawfare that took place, and then again, all of the future ridiculous actions that took place over the course of those 4 years. I've also heard people say, and I frankly disagree with this because it's a bit unprecedented regarding everything else that we've seen thus far, is that they've basically compared all of that to, again, kabuki theater, so to speak, and that it's all just a show, in the sense that they're trying to trick the American people by force-feeding them Joe Biden for 4 years, knowing full well that it was a stolen election, but that Donald Trump is somehow a pawn in this game, and that he's being moved around, at the whim of the so-called controllers, and then they install him knowing full well, again, that they're going to regain control and regain power, and thereby regain the support of the American people. Again, implying that Donald Trump is again just a pawn in all of this. I find that very hard to believe, only because, again, of the elaborate nature of this entire operation dating back certainly previously before 2017. It even predates the Q drops as far as I'm concerned. But with all of that said, again, I would just encourage people to pay attention to the things that he says and the way in which he says them, specifically when it comes to numbers that he sort of randomly references. I think the 80-20 strategy is more than just a political ideal or a political percentage of support. I think it has more to do with getting the vast majority, again, more specifically, of the population to support what's going on right now, which is rounding up illegals in these major cities, moving forward, and then, of course, holding accountable the guilty politicians who are behind all of this treason, sedition, and conspiracy to commit both. Yesterday, I also came across this. This was interesting, and an interesting Substack, and this was written, over a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago. But it's well done, and I want to read through this because, again, it's just kind of a bullet-pointed, huge list of what's actually happening here, specifically, again, regarding Donald Trump's words and what they actually mean and how they do have different meanings. This was from Echo Loves You, or echo.substack.com, EKO. This was on greatawakening.win, and it was even sent to me after I read it by a listener of the show because they thought I would like this, and they were right. And it's very good. It says the following here, and it's titled, Between the Lines, What Your POTUS Isn't Saying. And here's what it says. It says, power never announces its true intentions. It speaks in code, in ceremony, in the careful placement of words that mean one thing to the masses and another to those who understand the architecture of control. Monday, in a room too full of watchers pretending to be witnesses, the 47th President of the United States activated constitutional machinery that had been dormant for 50 years. Quote, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. 16 words about crime statistics, or 16 words about something else entirely. They went on and said the surface reads simple, federal control of a failing city. The depth reveals complex. The first plainly visible move in a game that began 13 years ago, when certain puzzles appeared online and certain minds began to see patterns in the static. Listen to nobody but your president. It goes on, it says, Secretary of Defense and Combat Vet Pete Hegseth stepped to the podium. His words were careful. Again, this was their meeting in the press room when Pam Bondi was there, Kash Patel, the whole gang. And again, Pete Hegseth said, you will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week. And then the author wrote, National Guard, that's what he said. But why did he add, quote, at your discretion, sir, there are other units we are prepared to bring in. What other units? For street crime? Why did generals exchange glances? Why did foreign journalists, it says, suddenly start texting? They went on and said the numbers don't add up. Donald Trump came with statistics, murder rates, carjackings, the usual urban decay narrative, but Kash Patel's numbers told a different story. 4,000 child victims found, 270 human traffickers arrested, networks dismantled across state lines, international connections severed. It says these aren't street crime statistics. This is counterterrorism data, counterintelligence metrics, the kind of numbers you see before major operations. I'm going to inject something here real quick. Excuse me. This is a military operation. You cannot do this with beat cops. You do this with serious military intel. Watching the boards, watching the phone numbers, watching the online chatter, getting all of the communications, and then honing in on where these people are and what they've done. Again, they're not just rounding up like these liberals seem to think. All these communists, again, are taking to the streets with their cell phones and recording ICE arresting these people. And they're saying stupid shit like, well, They're a hardworking Mexican, leave them alone. They're just doing their job, leave them alone, as they're being arrested. What those communist liberals don't understand is that those individuals are being arrested because they have arrest warrants. They know where they are. They have found them. And then they track them down. They have, again, arrest warrants. It goes way beyond them just being here illegally. Yes, they're here illegally. But at the same time, if their employer is going to be fined for harboring illegals, then the employer is going to give them up. If they have their own business, well, that's fine. But if they're illegals, then they're not allowed to have a business in the United States. But they have arrest warrants. They've broken the law numerous times, again, beyond just being here illegally. It's too precise. Again, these arrests are not haphazard, like, whoops, I just, stumbled on an illegal alien, better cuff him and throw him in the back of the car. No, they're going after these people because they know exactly where they are, and you can only do that with high-level military intel. That's what's going on here. And yeah, they're using the Marines, and they're using a boatload of people. Special forces, even. It goes on here. And Echo said the following, then Cash said something strange, quote, when you let good cops be cops, those words carry weight. And then it says the cicada protocol. 13 years ago, a puzzle appeared online, not a game, a recruitment tool. Those who solved it learned something valuable, how to communicate in plain sight, how to build networks invisible to surveillance, how to operate without leaks. The puzzle invited solvers to look beyond the veil, to help develop means of communication that couldn't be decrypted, to use new methods to dismantle old systems. The real question was, can you see the cage and help build the key? They went on and said, now 13 years later, watch what's not happening. No leaks from Trump's inner circle, no advance warning of critical actions, no intelligence chatter before the announcement. The machine's surveillance apparatus, vast, embedded, all-seeing, went blind. Why? Because the communication channels were built before the surveillance evolved. Methods analog and quantum. Puzzle piece protocols that only make sense if you have all the pieces. The magician's greatest trick isn't the illusion, it's making you watch the wrong hand. What DC really means. They went on and said the District of Columbia is federal territory, quote unquote. Constitutional scholars heard one thing when that was stated. Military planners heard another. Federal territory means no posse comitatus restrictions. Federal territory means military operations are constitutional. Federal territory means what happens in D.C. doesn't require state approval. Now remember what Trump said next, quote, I'm going to look at New York. If we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, unquote. Echo went on and said, same thing? National Guard for street crime? Or establishing federal authority in major cities before what? The 250th anniversary frame then, they said. Now, I'm going to stop there real quick and go back. Once you get the National Guard and military in place in these major cities, that's when you start arresting politicians. The moment that order is given to arrest politicians for what they've done, there will be people, again, in the streets who flip out. Well, clean and swift then. Then you wrap these people up as fast as possible, and they're, of course, obstructing justice, and then it's going down. That's why, we're seeing the constant panic among Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker and Karen Bass and Kathy Hochul and all these people. They're all losing their minds. They're running to microphones as much as humanly possible to scream and shout. There's not a damn thing they can do about it. The good guys have the goods on all of these bad people already. It's just a matter of when the order is given to get them. Echo went on here and said the 250th anniversary frame, quote, citizens, tourists, and federal workers deserve peace and security. They wrote in 5 months, every world leader comes to America, every embassy activates, every intelligence service deploys. The perfect cover for massive security operations, the perfect excuse for military presence, the perfect timing for something. Trump keeps mentioning the anniversary, not as celebration, as deadline. They went on and said the contradiction is the message. Mayor Bowser says, quote, crime is down 26%, unquote. She's right. Street crime is falling. So why federal intervention now? Why military deployment of improving statistics, unless it's not about street crime? Unless those murdered federal workers weren't random? Unless those trafficking networks were connected to something bigger? Unless the chaos of the past 300 months was orchestrated by forces that are still active? They went on and said other units standing by. Hegseth's words hang in the air. Quote, other units we are prepared to bring in, unquote. 10th Mountain Division specialists in rapid deployment, 82nd Airborne ready within 18 hours, Marine units stationed at Quantico 30 minutes from D.C. for street gangs, for graffiti cleanup, or for something Homeland Security discovered in those 4,000 child victim cases, or for networks Cash's 270 trafficking arrests exposed, or for threats that explain why Trump really said Liberation Day, quote unquote. The last time federal forces deployed to American cities with this level of constitutional authority, Lincoln was president. Circumstances different, machinery the same. And then they have a pattern list here. The pattern since 2012. In 2012, secure channels established, recruitment began. 2017, public awakening, future proves past. That's when Q-Post started. 2020, cities burn, votes stolen, everything documented. 2021, J6 manipulation reveals the entire opposing network. 2023, POTUS indicted on racketeering charges, precedent set. 2025, the trap springs. They went on and said, but trap for what? Street criminals? Or the people who orchestrated the chaos? Or the networks that protected them? Or something worse that hasn't been revealed? They went on, they said, what your president knows. Quote, I caught the swamp, I caught them all, let's see what happens, unquote. They said that was 2019, of course, when Trump said that. 6 years to prepare, 6 years to position, 6 years to build parallel structures invisible to the machine. Yesterday, he revealed just enough. Federal control established. Military assets deploying. Constitutional authority confirmed. Other cities on notice. But between the lines, something else entirely. Counterintelligence becoming counteroffensive. Trafficking networks revealing invasion routes. Child victims exposing broader operations. Beautification, quote unquote, means something very different. They went on here and said the storm has arrived. Outside National Guard vehicles rolled down Pennsylvania Avenue, but watch closer. Communication equipment that seems excessive for crowd control. Deployment patterns that suggest perimeter security. Air traffic restrictions that don't match the stated mission. Intelligence officials suddenly very, very busy. The president spoke for an hour about crime and cleaning streets, but everyone in that room heard something else. Everyone felt the electricity. Everyone knows something's coming. Now, I want to inject one thing real quick here because it just hit me. Excuse me. And again, it's something that I've brought up in the past, in a scenario I've brought up in the past, which is you have to take into account the education system. If you start making arrests of politicians while students are in school, these teachers are going to lose their minds. I mean, they're not going to know what to say. They're not going to know what to do. Trump's a dictator and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're going to lose it. But who is that good for? It's good for waking up Americans, because if you continue to see whack job educators, so to speak, quote unquote, bringing up ridiculous delusions that they have about how they view politics, when actual justice begins to take place, those students aren't going to sit there and take it. There are many younger generations that are waking up to the real world that we live in. Not to mention, they've removed cell phones from many states now. So that's going to cut off communication to some extent, but then again, they can use their Chromebooks to basically find whatever they want and record whatever they want, record their teachers' reactions and a number of other things. But even so, it's just going to be real interesting to see that if this goes down during the actual school year, what's actually going to happen again within those school environments. Is that going to create chaos on its own accord? Probably, to some extent anyway. Echo goes on here and says the following: trust only the source. In the next days, rumors will fly. Martial law, mass arrests, foreign threats, sleeper cells, financial reset, internet blackouts, emergency broadcasts. Some true, some false, most mixing truth with fiction. The fog of war is intentional. Confusion is operational security. But through it all, one voice remains clear: your president's. Not the media's interpretation, not the influencer's speculation, not even this analysis. His actual words, his executive orders, his official statements. Because in 13 years of preparation, they learned something crucial. The machine controls, contorts everything. So the most secure communication is public presidential record. The safest protocol is constitutional transparency. And then they went on and said Liberation Day. Quote, this is Liberation Day in D.C. That, of course, being what Donald Trump said during that press conference from over a week ago. Liberation from what exactly, they wrote? From street crime or from crimes against humanity? From local gangs? Or from international networks? From urban decay? Or from systematic evil? He didn't specify. He didn't need to. Everyone who needs to know already knows. Everyone who's guilty is already running. Everyone who's been waiting 13 years recognizes the signal. The storm isn't coming, it's here. And this was only Monday. Listen to your president, trust the plan, document everything, but most importantly, ignore the noise. The truth is in what he says. The operation is in what he doesn't. Between the lines, history is being written, and you're writing it. Unquote. There is no doubt that not just the visual optics of what's going on right now is unprecedented, but there is sort of this general calm that exists right now that, again, does have the enemy panicking. And like I said, running to microphones and screaming and shouting when there's nothing that they can do. They're so panicked that they're literally using Jeffrey Epstein and trying to, again, create memes saying, release the files and, where's the list and all this other stuff. You have the left now screaming about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And again, it is dominating their news cycle by and large. What does Donald Trump have to hide? Because they can't dive into what this means, because they're guilty regarding this. Even Fox News. Fox News continues to ring the whole Cracker Barrel story as much as humanly possible. So much so that they even did a report the other day on how they've changed the triangle game and the golf tee game and whatever else. They've changed all the verbiage on that to make it even more woke. Because again, woke is basically their default setting and their default verbal language that they use when they want to, again, just bring up some random story about something that's predictably terrible that doesn't have to exist. But they can't talk about what's actually going on in these cities because, again, they caused this. They caused all of this. Their corruption as media outlets participated in the treason and sedition and conspiracy to commit both, to steal a presidency from the American people. I mean, it was us that they stole it from. And because this is as elaborate as it is, and it's clearly military planning, again, using quantum computing to do what they have to do and strategize particular scenarios and outcomes and then balance them out and figure out, again, which one is going to happen when and the likelihood of success and a number of other things. I mean, we have to assume that that's all going on. But what's interesting is, of course, that they can walk and chew gum at the same time. And they're doing numerous things at the exact same time. Because, again, you don't have to just do things one way and only one thing at one particular time. Again, they're going after the Federal Reserve on a constant basis. The Federal Reserve has never been more scrutinized than it is now. So much so that, again, based on an allegation of falsifying information on a mortgage application, Donald Trump has called for and actually announced the removal of Lisa Cook, who has a position on the Fed Board of Governors. This large black lady. Well, good. She says she's not resigning. I will not resign. I will continue to carry out my duties to help the American economy as I have been doing since 2022. Well, it doesn't matter. Trump's openly saying again that the Federal Reserve is useless, that it's not constitutional, and that he has the right to dismantle it. And if he has to do it piece by piece, then so be it. Even in the comments section here, it says, warning shot against the bow for Jerome Powell. Yeah, it is. Eventually, the Fed will cease to exist. Donald Trump knows it. The Treasury is the only thing that needs to exist. But again, this is sort of the soft disclose for the normies here. All of this will be done away with, and your average brainwashed American just won't care because they won't understand the importance of getting rid of it in the first place. It's incredible. I mean, I'm overwhelmed. This is an incredible time to be alive. Now, in that same vein, as even Echo brought up in that Substack, which again makes plenty of sense, the false flags are going to continue to happen here. And I'm going to slide right into education now. They're happening again at these universities on a constant basis. I've said it numerous times before here on the show. I've put it out on social media. You're well aware. This is happening like clockwork. And the reason that it happens the way that it happens, and it should be stone cold proof to anybody that the CIA still has deep state players within it. They could be foreign as well, Israeli, if I had to take a guess, among others. And all they do again is use a VPN. They lock into their particular communication systems within these K12 schools or universities, and then they send out a false message that there's some kind of an active shooter when in fact there's not. Now let me read this quick little summary here, and then I'm going to play some audio from some of these news outlets because, again, there have been at least 4 or 5 or more already just within the last couple of weeks. Of course, there was Villanova University on August 21st. There was Emory University on August 8th. And again, all of these are proving to be false. But again, does that mean that they're calling in all these false ones to have a real one pop off? That they're going to give some guns to illegal aliens and say, do this to the American public, shoot them up, or else you're going to get deported. And yes, if you survive, then you can come out and we'll give you a place to live and we'll give you some money and you'll be safe. I mean, that's what the deep state would do. They would activate these sleeper cells and then have these individuals again do what they're doing. But I don't believe for a minute that this is necessarily being done by good guys to prepare the brainwashed public for such an incident. I mean, it's a bit, that would be a bit much. I don't think that that's taking place. I really do believe, again, that these are just sleeper cells, again, ritualistically traumatizing the public and the brainwashed college goers, because let's face it, if they're generally attending a brick and mortar school, they're, probably not that awake. But even so, because again, online universities don't ever experience this nonsense, let alone the running around and the screaming and, you need to lock in place and all this other stuff. And again, I'm not being critical. I understand that people attend college for lots of different things and lots of different reasons. But point is that it's one of those soft target environments that does exist where people are socially engineered to believe that something is happening in one dimension when in fact it's happening for a completely far more nefarious reason. This explanation goes on here. It says, let's see here. In 2023, there were reports that noted approximately 30 swatting incidences per week in schools, with 728 swatting incidences recorded nationwide that year. And that's not just for universities. In fact, that excludes universities. That's typically involving just K12 schools. 30 a week. I mean, that's a lot. And so here's what we had just the other day. Let me get into these here. South Carolina. This was the first one here. My apologies. This is on Gateway Pundit, August 24th. Just in, active shooter report at the University of South Carolina prompts shelter-in-place order. And then it says potentially false alarm. And then, of course, it was a false alarm, and that was that. 6:45 p.m. Alert systems noted that it does not confirm whether a shooting has happened, but urges comprehensive safety precautions, including shelter-in-place protocols. That was just one. Here's another one. Let's see here. University of Arkansas. Shooter reports appear to be a hoax. There's some audio with this one. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
All right, well, right now we're about to go out to this presser where we're going to hear an update on what happened earlier today at the University of Arkansas.
Let's listen in.
Mills, MILLS, Assistant Chief, University of Arkansas Police Department. Around 12:30 today, we received our first 911 call of a man with a gun and shots fired inside Mullins Library. Officers from our agency, as well as many outside responding agencies, including Fayetteville, Springdale, Taneytown, State Police, Washington County Sheriff's Office, all responded to the scene. Before we were able to clear the scene, we received a total of 308 landline phone calls and 38 911 calls that covered 7 different buildings on campus, all reporting either a suspect or shots fired, active shooter event. From there, the officers were able to clear all of the buildings. We cleared them floor by floor, room by room, escorted many students, faculty, and staff out of the buildings, and then were able to break down command and open the buildings. At this time, we have no record of shots fired, no injuries. It's looking as if this was another swatting or hoax call.
Now look at this. Again, it was a 10-minute presser, but I'm going to stop it there just for the sake of brevity. But look at it from a strategic standpoint here. When you have that many officers in that many departments, as he just said, all deployed to one building, again, when the message went out that was that specific, that said it was in the library, an active shooter, somebody's down, shots have been fired, whatever else, any other details that they add in, I mean, immediately, police are like, holy shit, we got to get there. But they're bringing in endless departments, state police, everybody runs right to that scene immediately. Which means they're drawn a little thin, are they not, in endless other places? Which means, again, something could really be popping off at another place where there are next to zero police and certainly no police presence. I mean, this is interesting because you can move these people around like pawns on a chessboard and they'll run right to one corner. And all you have to do is apparently just throw out a fake call like this. And again, they always say the same things at the end too, where they say all the resources are going to be exhausted and we promise that we're going to get to the bottom of this, or we're going to figure out who is responsible, although it's kind of tough in situations like this because of this reason and that reason, whatever else. They'll never get down to the bottom of it. Again, it goes beyond using a VPN. You're talking again about this being people in their own backyard. CIA, FBI, badge police wearers, whomever. I mean, it could be one of their own. So again, it's designed for a thinking person anyway. It would be designed to sow seeds of distrust within these departments themselves to see again whether or not it could be one of their own. And it very well could be. It could also be a foreign country, Israel, or it could be, of course, just about anybody else. But I don't think it's like, Teddy McGillicuddy from down the street who, has an online hobby of calling in hoaxes. I don't think that's the case. This is far too sophisticated and it's far too prevalent, and it happens with such regularity, again, certainly by deep state players in my opinion, that it's done again to ritualistically traumatize individuals, but is it being done again to set something up in the future that's really going to take place? You also had this one. This was in a branch campus of LSU. This was sent to me by a listener of the show also. LSUA, Alexandria, their Alexandria campus here. Students shaken but united after active shooter hoax. This was on August 25th. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
SUA students started their first day of the semester today. This after a heavy law enforcement was on scene for an alleged active shooter last night. At around 5 o'clock yesterday evening, several police departments responded to LSUA due to a call about an active shooter on campus to the Alexandria Police Department. Nearly 4 hours later, the all clear was given. Louisiana State Police is now leading the investigation. LSUA Police, the Rapides Parish Sheriff's Office, APD, Woodworth, and LeCount Police Departments were all on scene. There remains no credible signs of a threat. We spoke with the Vice Chancellor for Student Engagement, Dr. Abby Bain, about what the school is calling a hoax.
I hope that, whoever made this prank call understands the severity of something like this. And so many, people came to search our campus when they really could have potentially been helping other people who needed it.
And our Jay McCulley joins me now in studio. Jay, you spoke with some of the students today. How are they responding to the ordeal?
Hey, Johnny. So the students I spoke with are upperclassmen, and they're handling the hoax with grace. But their biggest concern is for the freshmen who may have gone through their very first lockdown away from home.
It's crazy because we just started school like freshmen. They just being away from their parents. Parents was worried and stuff like that. Some people are young on this campus, so stuff like that should be taken how it was taken yesterday.
Luckily, some students are able to experience this just as a hope so they can be ready if something actually does happen, be a lot more prepared. But still, it's obviously terrible. Like, just a day before class is starting, a lot of these new freshmen coming in, first time ever experiencing college, and this is what they're hit with.
LSUA offers free and confidential counseling services for students. You can give them a call at the number on your screen. If you have any information about who made the hoax phone call, you're asked to contact LSP at the number on your screen. As always, we'll continue to keep you updated on any developments regarding this matter. Johnny?
Yes, I'd like to make a report. It is the CIA. It's the deep state CIA. It's the sleeper cells. They're the ones doing this. They have access to the systems. They can breach the systems, or it's somebody actually within your own university doing this. Yes, I know you find that impossible, that there's no way that your own government, let alone your own citizens, would do such a thing, because why would they want to stretch all those resources so thin? Why would they want to create such chaos, and why would they want to do these things? This is beyond, again, it's beyond people's capacity to think. That poor woman who works for the university, I just hope that the people understand that this is just really wrong. Yes, they know it's wrong. That's the whole point. That's the point. Your country does this to you on a regular basis. Do you think that she knows that there were no planes on 9/11? Holy shit. You sit her down and try to explain that one, her head will explode. She thinks this is some kid with a cell phone pranking somebody. No, no, no. Way more sophisticated for way more nefarious reasons. This will continue to happen. It'll be a constant. It's one of the last plays they have. They really only have two, as I've said. Yeah, they could try a fake school shooting again with all of the theatrics that they use and everything else. They could do that, but that's a lot of money wasted, that's a lot of resources, and that's a lot of lies that you have to continue to perpetuate and then recycle on a constant basis, month in, month out, year in, year out, to try to get people again to change their policy and we're going to do things better, we promise, and what a tragedy, and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, everybody believes that lie. Or you could just arm some illegals and send them running through a building, just knocking people off left and right, and really do it this time. Or you could continue to do these fake hoaxes, I suppose, and just send everybody into a constant state of unrest, with the drop of a hat. I think the latter two options are far more likely now going forward. The Biden administration did a pretty good job of wearing everybody out with the fake school shootings. There were a lot of them on his watch. Madison, Wisconsin, Uvalde, Nashville. The list is long. But even so, I think something legit could actually take place. That's assuming, of course, that military intelligence isn't intervening by collecting, again, the communications and the wires of these individuals talking back and forth about, again, what they have planned and what they want to do. So that's just a thought, but, people should expect this. And if you're getting 700 plus in whatever it was 2 years ago at the K12 level, I mean, hell, they're already popping off here at the university level. Here's another one, Iowa State University. Again, this was on August 25th also. I mean, they're so not creative that they're doing this all on the exact same day. Again, multiple universities across the United States all on the same day. That's deep state sleeper cell CIA stuff. This is a walk in the park for them. Give this a listen. This is from WGEM.com, your trusted name in news, in 3, 2, 1.
What they say is a false report of an active shooter on the Iowa State University campus in Ames.
Yeah, in a news release, the University Police Department says the calls may have been an example of swatting. The department said it first received a report of someone walking around a residence hall with a rifle, and another call said there was an active shooter at the campus library. Both calls were determined to be fake. The department said calls like these are taken very seriously and that nothing is more important than the safety of students and faculty. It's now working with FBI to try and track down whoever made these reports, but said these calls can be frustrating.
This is really frustrating because, it brings an element of potential danger that doesn't need to be there. We're having an immediate, swift response. Officers are responding lights and sirens, which is dangerous in and of itself.
This is one of a string of fake shooter calls at universities around the country. Last week, students at Villanova University were celebrating orientation when they got text messages to secure their location and lock or barricade doors. It was a similar scene at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga on the same day.
And the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. So there you go. Again, they just don't understand what this really is and who's really doing it. They don't have a clue, and they're not asking the question. And then, of course, they're never catching these people. Why? Because they can't. Not to mention, say, for example, they did. Do you think that they would actually make it public that these calls were coming from members of our own government or members of our own law enforcement? No. They would never make that public. It would blow too many minds. People would, again, they wouldn't be able to comprehend it. That level of evil. For the purpose, again, of just manipulation and distraction. But again, it's like clockwork. It's like a car accident on prom night. It really is just that simple. I mean, it happens every single year, all of the time, and it happens year-round. Never happens during the summer months, but it happens right when everybody goes back to school. Let me get into some sexual crime now, as if we all need to listen to this, I suppose, but not really. But there's a lot of it. And again, school's back in session, and so are the creeps. New York Post, California elementary school teacher recorded sexually abusing students for decades, sentenced to 215 years to life. Now, real quick, if you're going to give this Kim Kenneth Wilson, 64 years old, if you're going to give them 215 years to life in prison, why not just execute them? Just make it quick. I mean, we don't need to feed and bathe and get, put a roof over this person's head for the rest of their life. Just execute them. We need serious federal law here when it comes to these kinds of crimes. In fact, I thought Donald Trump had basically wrapped that up and said when it came to crimes of this nature, that the death penalty was whatever it was, back on the docket here. I don't know. Again, a disgraced California elementary school teacher was sentenced to more than 2 centuries in prison last Friday after authorities unraveled the decades-long sexual abuse he committed against many of his own students. Now again, how many people knew about this? I bet that list is very long of some former employees. Kim Kenneth Wilson, 64, male, served as the head of the Audio-Visual Club at Del Paso Heights Elementary School for 23 years before he was axed when the stomach-turning abuse was revealed. wound up curating a mountain of evidence against him, including sick photographs, it says, and videos he captured of himself committing sex acts on his female students, often as young as 6 or 7 years old. Wood chipper time. Thanks to his position as the AV club head, he was flush with resources. Well, that's not a good thing. Including a soundproof broadcasting room where he would assault his victims, according to the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office. Now, see, here's the other bad part about this. There's no good part about it. This is where a lot of lawyers get things like this wrong, including law enforcement themselves, when they would say things like, well, there's normally a grooming process when it comes to sexual predators, and very rarely do they just outright sexually assault or rape someone. That's not true. In many cases, sexual assaults occur when the individual, in fact, I'd go so far as to say the majority of cases, when the individual who is the predator just flat out swoops in and grabs the prey and does what they want to them. There doesn't have to be some grooming process. There doesn't have to be gift cards that are given or back rubs or anything like that. It's just a flat out assault. This happens all of the time. So again, if anybody believes that false myth of there being some or always being a grooming time period, that's not true. Here's another one. This is from Kansas City, Missouri. Metro teacher recorded child porn videos inside elementary bathroom. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
More breaking news tonight. 28-year-old Dennis Hernandez, a teacher in the Independent School District, is facing 3 federal child pornography crimes, including production of it. He previously worked as a substitute for several area school districts, and court documents show that he admitted to producing a video inside an elementary school in Gladstone. The Independent School District says that it is deeply disturbed by the charges, but it did not say if he was still employed. If you think that your child may be a victim, you are being asked to call 911.
Now here's the school's response. Typical and laughable. It says, quote, "This individual is no longer an employee of the district, and we take all reports of wrongdoing very seriously to ensure our schools remain a safe and nurturing environment for all. As a standard procedure, all employees undergo background checks and law enforcement databases are continuously monitored. We are fully supporting and cooperating with federal and local law enforcement as they conduct their investigation. We are committed to ensuring accountability." Well, good for them. But the damage is already done here. They went on, North Kansas City Schools has very high expectations of staff. In the strongest possible terms, we condemn these alleged actions and will take all possible steps to ensure accountability. We understand this is an unsettling news to receive, but it is important that you hear directly from us. This is the information we currently have, and we pledge to send continued updates as we learn more. If you have additional questions, please contact your child's school or our district office. The well-being of your students is our highest priority, and we take safety very seriously, unquote. Horse shit. No, you don't. You had a substitute teacher who looked sketchy to begin with. Again, the dude's Hispanic, but I'm just saying, sketchy enough. Recording child porn videos inside an elementary bathroom. So, again, what is he doing? Is he uploading videos? Is he recording minors? You have recording devices inside of your bathrooms and your employees are completely unaware that this is taking place? It says he even produced one of these videos in one of the bathrooms with students. So he had students engaging in a sexual act within this school. Elementary school, I might add, and then he recorded it. And nobody knew about it. Nobody. Nobody even suspected anything? Come on. I mean, I know people are stupid, and I know they're dumb in this business, but please, somebody knew. And if accountability is the thing you seem to care about, well, Sorry, I'm not going to put my chips on that number. I don't think that's the case. I've never thought that was the case with this business, and it certainly isn't now. This also, of course, was picked up by the United States Attorney's Office, where it's a little more descriptive. It says he was arrested at his home yesterday during an execution of a federal search warrant. He remains in custody and is scheduled for his initial appearance back on, August 21st. It says the complaint affidavit alleges that on August 19th, the Federal Bureau of Investigation received 19 cyber tip line reports, cyber tips, quote unquote, from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. NCMEC made their referral after it received disclosures from Google on August 18th indicating that multiple files of apparent child sexual abuse material had been uploaded to Google Photos by a particular account and had identifying information consistent with to Hernandez. The affidavit further alleges that based upon these cyber tips, agents with the FBI sought to obtain a federal search warrant, which was executed on the morning of August 20th. Child pornography, production and attempted production of child pornography carries a minimum sentence of 15 years, maximum sentence of 30. Sentencing hearing in the future, and that's about it. Predators, ladies and gentlemen, predators go where the prey exists. It's always been the case, and in many cases, they run the place. So keep that in mind moving forward also. Now, speaking of predators who certainly think they run the joint, this was from Fox News. Nation's two largest teachers' unions funneled nearly $50 million to left-wing groups, Watchdog report says. Now, I have to mention this too. And again, you've heard me say this on the show, and you're well aware of this. This is the exact move that is being made and was going to be made, and predictably so, when you essentially dismantle the Department of Education. These NGOs and these unions and all these education groups, quote unquote, they have to go directly to the source then, because they can't go to the Department of Education. So they bypass them. And then they go right to the states, and the unions and the NGOs start talking in a way that maybe they've never talked before in the past, although, let's face it, they always have. But those calls are ramping up because the NGOs have a product that they want to sell, and they have a grift that they need to have accepted by teachers' unions so that they can continue to enslave the teachers who are unionized, because they're, again, not wise to any of this. So they fork over, again, a portion of their paycheck on a monthly basis to unions that are literally paid to manipulate them. It goes on here in this article. It says, amid a trend of declining membership since the Supreme Court struck down mandatory union dues, the nation's two largest teachers' unions have poured tens of millions into left-wing causes. A new report from a conservative watchdog group finds. It says the national nonprofit group Defending Ed released a report this week after combing through the National Education Association and American Federation of Teachers' contributions to left-wing and far-left groups. The nonprofit found that the two unions spent a combined $43.5 million since 2022 to help fund state and federal political action committees and other ideological left-wing entities, such as DC think tanks. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's money laundering, and it's money laundering designed to brainwash the entire education business. NGOs, unions, and then right into the lap of an unsuspecting classroom administrator or teacher or district who refuses to say the word no when one of these stupid ideas comes down the pipeline. It goes on here. It says, quote, it is clear that the teachers' union's priorities are advancing far-left politics and radical social justice issues, not the education of children, unquote. Defending Ed researcher Ryan Stanley told Fox News Digital, quote, this is a slap in the face to families and teachers who want to focus on helping students improve their reading and math skills. It is time that Congress acts to stop this obscene redistribution of public monies to advance left-wing identity politics. It's only going to get worse until the unions are completely dismantled. because they're only being held up again, not just by these NGOs, but by gullible educators who pay into them. It says left-wing philanthropic behemoths like Tides Network, New Venture Fund, 1630 Fund, and Future Forward, the last of which was the main super PAC supporting Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential run after former President Joe Biden dropped out, all received a combined nearly $1.5 million from the unions, according to the report. The unions also forked over significant amounts of cash for groups that focus on supporting left-wing candidates for public office, such as the Democratic Governors Association, Democrats' House Majority and Senate Majority PACs. Other groups they've donated to include major left-wing think tanks like Center for American Progress and its 501c3 forearm, which received close to $1 million since 2022 from the two unions. This wraps up here, and it says, quote, Aaron Wright, an expert on public sector unions, pointed out that the National Education Association spends less than 10% of its budget on what he called representational activities, quote unquote, while, at the same time, the union spends 38% of its budget on contributions to left-leaning groups, lobbying, and political gifts. Again, teachers pay into this. They literally throw their money away. It says, quote, you'd think in light of the decline in union membership in recent years that they'd start providing value to members that outweighs the cost of membership. Wythe told Fox News Digital, quote, instead, they are appeasing the radical base of union members by advocating for men and women's sports, transitioning minors, anti-Semitism, and other radical ideological stances. I might add, advocating for pedophiles. That's the biggest problem. That's what these unions are advocating for also. And teachers' salaries go directly to that. It wraps up and says he added that this is just the tip of the iceberg, too, when you consider that there are thousands of statewide and city and county teacher unions that are mostly funding the same causes, yes, including pedophilia and including crimes against children. I'd go so far as to say child trafficking. Now, kind of wrapping up here on education, there was this, and I think this could be art of the deal. I don't necessarily see this happening. I don't see it as being a good move if it really did happen. But this too was on Fox News, and people were yelling about this. Trump opens door to 600,000 Chinese students amid Beijing trade talks. It says move reverses previous administration plans to revoke visas for Chinese nationals. Again, it could just be the art of the deal. Beijing has a, what does it say here? 125% tariff on U.S. exports. I don't know. We have 145% tariff on all Chinese goods. So there's a trade war going on with China right now, which I'm fine with. Okay, so be it. But allowing their students to come in here after we got rid of the Confucius Centers during his first term. And again, even the campus here at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, all the Chinese students just disappeared. You snapped your fingers and they were gone. Now, there are still some, which, okay, fine, but not a great deal. Certainly not the way that it was. So again, I think it could just be a pump fake, but time will tell. This is one of the things we'll have to pay attention to. And Lord knows we'll be able to see it because it's not going to be that difficult to spot. Okay. Let me wrap up with this very quick. Again, as I'm recording this, Trump's having another cabinet meeting right now. So again, you talk about communications. I'm sure there's a bunch there. I listened to an ad the other day on the radio that was, I believe, a Walgreens ad. And it was an abomination, as one might expect, having to do with flu shots and things of that nature. That you can get 6 shots at once or whatever it was, 6 family members were all going into Walgreens to all get injected at the exact same time because you don't want to get flu this season. So we all need to protect ourselves and make sure that we all get flu shots because that's the best way to protect against flu. until those commercials are gone and completely outlawed in our country, I don't see a whole lot of things changing, unless, of course, it's a desperation move from these companies to get shots in people's arms because they know that the vast majority of the citizens of our country are not participating, which, of course, would be a very good thing from that angle. It's also being discussed again, and more headlines are ramping up that in the coming months, whether that be next month or the month after or sometime before Christmas, that the COVID shots will be taken off of the market. More people are reporting this. Apparently somebody who works inside HHS had some interview with someone at Newsweek, and then they basically said that. Again, it's a leak of sorts, and can it be trusted? Again, it's one of those things where we'll just have to wait and see, and time will tell. But people need to stay as far away from this as humanly possible. And again, if you have, as I said in previous episodes, if you have county health departments that are bragging about having multiple doses of flu within a singular flu shot, more so than anything in the past, again, that should raise the hair on the back of anybody's neck and raise about endless suspicions about what's really going on here. So, yeah, don't participate, vote with your feet, stay away from it, exercise, eat right, get sunshine, you'll be just fine. And then, of course, stay away from the jabbed. And certainly, rather, the individuals who have had it recently, because those are the people who are doing the worst amount of shedding. If a person received a COVID shot years ago, or 2 COVID shots years ago, I don't know the long-term shedding impact of that. Certainly this many years past those initial shots. 4 years now past those initial shots, coming up on 5 years. So I don't know about that either, but I do know that, again, the shedding is a very real thing. It's in the package insert of current flu shots, but of course, the individuals dishing out the actual shots themselves aren't going to tell the recipients about the shedding and how that is electromagnetism, and that's how the whole thing works. So yeah, again, the commercials are just disgusting, but they continue and they persist, and hopefully a day will come where they no longer exist. That would be nice. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to end with this. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I've been critical of Sheriff Richard Jones, the cowboy hat-wearing sheriff in the county where I live, Butler County, Ohio. But he's standing firm on this when it comes to keeping an illegal alien locked up who happens to be accused of murder, I believe in Iraq. This is Ayman Soleiman. This guy apparently is Egyptian, or hails from Egypt, allegedly. Has been accused of killing a couple of people. Of course, the media is not going to tell you that. Certainly not this Cincinnati WLWT report. And, of course, as you would expect, you got a bunch of left-wing lunatics screaming that this Soleiman guy needs to be released, that he's a good man, and it's a death sentence if you keep him locked up. Well, if it's a death sentence if you keep him locked up, then what did he do? Did he really kill somebody in a foreign country? What's the penalty for murdering somebody in Iraq? I'm going to take a guess that it's swift justice if I was, a betting man. But anyway, give this news report a listen. And again, I tip my hat to Richard Jones on this one. He's right. And even if, again, the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, that feckless little whatever, if he attempts to intervene, which he can't, he has no jurisdiction here. So, yeah, there's nothing that he can do, and Richard Jones isn't budging. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Controversy tonight surrounding former Cincinnati Children's chaplain and ICE detainee Ayman Soleiman.
His supporters calling on the governor now to take steps to release Soleiman from the Butler County Jail. But today, the Butler County Sheriff said it's going to take a lot more than that. WLWT News 5's Daisy Kershaw live at the Butler County Jail with the latest in this back and forth. Hi, Daisy.
Hi there, Mike. In Columbus, supporters handed Governor Mike DeWine a petition with more than 1,000 signatures asking that he help Ayman Soleiman. But the Butler County Sheriff says that they need a federal order to release Soleiman from jail. He says anything coming from DeWine when it comes to release orders, he would not comply with.
I could care less. If the governor signed 20 edicts or orders for me to release the imam, I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to do it. He's not my boss.
As faith leaders gathered in the state capitol, calling on Governor Mike DeWine to intervene in former Cincinnati Children's chaplain Amen Solomon's immigration case, Sheriff Richard Jones made his stance clear.
He can sign an executive order, but I'm not going to listen to the executive order. I don't work for him. I work for the people.
Jones also says he's in touch with the White House and has support.
He's a federal prisoner. The governor doesn't have any say-so in where he's held at all. The feds do. And we have a contract with the federal government. We don't have one with the state of Ohio.
Solomon came to America in 2014 from Egypt seeking asylum. Legal asylum was granted in 2018, but was revoked this year. Solomon was detained in July after a routine check-in with immigration officials. In Columbus today, supporters saying that for Solomon, deportation is a matter of life and death.
Literally, like Amon's life is in the hands of this judge, and by proxy in the hands of Governor DeWine, who could speak up and advocate.
Sheriff Jones doubling down on defying DeWine, saying what happens next is for the immigration judge to decide.
As far as his persecution goes, that's not my concern. He's a prisoner in my jail. That's for somebody else's concern.
A federal immigration judge in Cleveland will hear Amen Solomon's case again tomorrow. As for the governor's response, he has not publicly said anything addressing the calls for him to support Solomon. Also has not responded to any of the comments made by Sheriff Jones. Reporting live tonight in Butler County, Daisy Kershaw, WLWT News 5.
He was an imam at a children's hospital. And during that press conference, you had Muslims, Christians, female pastors standing behind this individual, nodding their head, going, yes, he needs to be released. We need to support him any way that we can, and we need government to intervene. He's wanted for murder in a foreign country. Why did he seek asylum in the first place? Could it be because he's wanted for murder? It's murder. My God. And of course, there he is, a Muslim man. You know, they show pictures of him hugging kids. A bit suspicious, is it not? I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, the absence in the minds of individuals to not be able to pick out a murderer, let alone a potential pedophile, is over flippin' whelming to me. My gaydar is on point all of the time. I can look at a person probably 10 yards away, if not longer than that, and be like, yep, that person's gay. 100%. That person's picture looks like a pedophile. That person looks like they like to do something with kids. That person, blah, blah, blah. Again, it's on point. The batteries are charged on my gaydar all of the time. I can figure this shit out real easily. This guy's creepy. Period. Not to mention, wanted for murder. Funny how the news outlet doesn't even dive into why he was seeking asylum or why he was rounded up. It's not just he's an illegal alien and his whatever, his work visa or what have you has expired. No. Murder. Honestly, it's just incredible. Now let me mention this again. Speaking of I'll actually end with this then. Speaking of rounding up illegals and cleaning up cities, kind of come full circle here. This is a comment from an individual who listens to the show, and thank you for making the comment on Rumble. A Marion, if I'm saying that right, Marion NorCal. They said the following here. They said, I'm in the Berkeley, Oakland area of California, which is the most militant communist area of the country. It's even worse than you can imagine in terms of crime, filth, and social engineering of the children. They push hard on the gender fluidity, quote unquote, encouraging the children to change their pronouns, quote unquote, with genders at will and genders at will. They said there are pride flags flying at the schools. But what is even more disturbing is that the population supports this. The natural maternal and paternal instincts are completely gone here. Parents permit their children to be groomed, but also beaten up in the schools, victims always white, and they justify it and defend the perpetrators. People minimize the horrific crime here. Governor Giuliani was able to clean up Manhattan because the populace didn't want to live in violence and filth. But in the area where I live, Berkeley, Oakland, Emeryville, El Cerrito, Albany, Richmond, etc., the white progressives, quote unquote, are totally okay with living this way, even if it means destruction of their own children's bodies, minds, and souls, and their own. It is a very disturbing place to live, way worse than Los Angeles or even San Francisco, unquote. Well, I'm sorry about that, and that's terrible, and predictably so. Yeah, there is nothing worse than a white brainwashed liberal. I'm telling you, they are incredible. They don't have a mind of their own. They're incapable of having an original thought, let alone an opinion, let alone a fact. And I have no doubt that they, again, do this to their own children because of their own brainwashed selves. It is disturbing, to say the least. Okay. Not sure what else I can add there, but yeah, the National Guard needs to go there too and clean up all of those places, and that would be fantastic. Okay, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really leaving this time. I'll catch you on Friday. Thanks for listening as always. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.